Okay, in Chapter 9, we're going to cover financial reporting of state and local governments. And we're going to go over the CAFR, or the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which will be referred to as CAFR a lot. You may hear that, for the city of Birmingham. And then, following that review of the CAFR for city of Birmingham, we'll take a look at some of the required reconciliations for governments that don't do the dual track accounting like you may have been doing on your Smithville project, or that the textbook recommends. These governments are basically just staying with the old, fund-focused accounting method of just recording transactions on a fund basis. And then at the end of the year, when it's time to prepare their financial reports, just making some reconciliation entries to prepare the government-wide financial statements. Again, we're going to take a look at a comprehensive annual report, or a CAFR, for the city of Birmingham for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2012. And here's a link here. But if you're doing something where you can't really copy the link and you don't have the PowerPoint presentation, just type in City of Birmingham CAFR and it should be one of the first few hits that you get. All right, so this 2012 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the City of Birmingham is for the year ended June 30th, 2012. Here's the nice cover page showing you a little bit of UAB, most of downtown Birmingham. The report will start out with a table of contents, just kind of directing you about all the specific areas of this CAFR. And it's broken down into three main sections: an introductory section, a financial section, and a statistical section. And we'll start with the introductory section. The introductory section will start out with what's called a transmittal letter. And this is coming from, I think, the finance director for the city of Birmingham. And basically, if I can read the first paragraph here, right here. The City of Birmingham's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the fiscal year ending 6/30/12 is hereby submitted. The report represents the official comprehensive publication of the city's financial position at June 30th, 2012. It tells the responsibility for accuracy, completeness, and fairness of the data rests with the management of the City of Birmingham. Basis for reliance of the financial statements is a comprehensive framework of internal control, because the cost of internal control should not exceed anticipated benefits. The objective is to provide reasonable rather than absolute assurance of the statements that the statements are free from any material misstatements. And some of the other things that are given here in this transmittal letter are kind of an overview of the city, like a city profile. And you see in this first paragraph taken from this transmittal letter, at the top of your screen here, it tells about the city being incorporated in 1871, tells about the form of government with the mayor and the 9-member city council, talks about it, and it also gives an organizational chart, which I think I'll show you in a minute, showing there's 24 departments responsible for the administration of the city. And it also just kind of throws in some information about the economic environment that the report is being issued in, and some of the major initiatives that are going on in the city. Of course, one mentioned here is a new minor league baseball park under construction, the one that's now finished and that the Barons are playing in. And then, kind of an environmental factor that's addressed in this transmittal letter is that in 2011, Jefferson County filed for bankruptcy in November 2011. And the Treasury officer, the financial officer, is quick to point out that before year end, the city had collected all amounts due from the county. Here's the organizational chart I talked about earlier. Also included in their CAFR was some type of recognition that they got for their reporting, their financial reporting. So apparently they're doing a good job of putting their reports together and making it informative and comprehensive, aside from the required elements. So yeah, here's an organizational chart that was referred to earlier in the city profile. The financial section is the next section, and starts out with the auditor's report from the independent CPA. Important thing to note about any auditor's report is found in the third paragraph down here. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities in the aggregate, and discretely presented component units, each major fund, blah blah blah. So they got a unqualified, a clean audit here, which is good. And this is pretty much just a standard auditor's report, though, that leads off the financial section. The next part of the financial section is the management's discussion and analysis. It starts off with some financial highlights here. It talk about the total net assets that increased 9.4 million for the city. The assets of the city of Birmingham exceeded liabilities by 182 million, and the governmental funds combined ending fund balances of 298 million, which was a decrease over the prior fiscal year. Then what this does, this management discussion analysis, gives you an overview of the financial statements. And here you can see the three components to these financial statements. You have the government-wide financial statements, which gives you the overview of the entire government presented at once, the fund financial statements, and the notes to the financial statements. You see here it says the government-wide gives you a broad overview of the city finances. And it's composed of two main statements: the statement of net assets and the statement of activities. The statement of net assets on pages 21 and 22 reports all of Birmingham's assets and liabilities, with the difference between the two being net assets. So you can see it's kind of giving you just an overview of the type of statements that you'll come across in the following pages. And here's an explanation of the fund financial statements, which ones you're going to see again on the following pages. Governmental funds. Here it's describing them used to account for essentially the same functions as reported as governmental activities in the government-wide statements. And it reiterates something we covered in the past, which is the focus for these these reports or for governmental funds are on near-term inflows and outflows of spending resources, as well as balances of spendable resources available at the end of the fiscal year. And again, this is an important paragraph too. Because the focus of governmental funds is narrower than that of the government-wide statements, it's useful to compare information presented on governmental funds with the similar information presented on the governmental activities column in the government-wide financial statements. And they actually, as they state here, give you reconciliations between those two statements. And here's another useful table that they include here that gives you something that may be useful to you, along with the framework that we covered at the beginning. I think it was chapter 2. This is going to give you an overview of the various kinds of financial statements by category at the top, and then all the various characteristics of those statements down below. The scope of the statements, which statements are required, the accounting basis and measurement focus. You can see all of them except the governmental funds here have an accrual accounting and economic resources focus, whereas the governmental funds are the only ones that have the modified accrual and current financial resources focus. A pretty helpful table there that they included. All right, so City of Birmingham starts out its financial statements with these condensed statement of net assets. And you can see here it's got governmental activities and business type activities at the top. This is kind of a form of the government-wide statements. but it's condensing and it's not listing all the various activities out through here. Those you'll see in a second come with the governmental activities, the regular statement of net assets and statement of activities. And here's the condensed statement of net assets here. You'll see it's just got the various forms of revenue, program revenues, general revenues, and then the expenses that you've seen in general form on your various homework assignments, as well as the Smithville Smithville assignment. And you'll see here it's got columns for governmental activities for the 2 years being compared, as well as the business type activities. Okay, now here we're going to get to the more familiar government-wide financial statements that aren't condensed, that are more detailed, and of course there are two government-wide financial statements: the statement of net assets, which is like a balance sheet, as well as the statement of changes in net assets, more like a income statement. And you'll see here that at the top you've got the two columns. You've got the governmental activities and the business type activities. Again, refer back to your framework that we covered earlier in the semester. And because government-wide activities, government-wide statements have a long-term or economic resources management focus, they do contain long-term assets as well as the short-term assets that you'll see in the fund financial statements. And here are your liabilities, and of course governments don't have owners, so it's not called owner's equity, it's called net assets down below. That and the liabilities of course add up to the total assets. And you see here that they've got the government activities, business type activities, as well as the component funds that are presented outside of the totals. All right, here's a statement of activities report. Again, we're talking about the government-wide statements for the year ended 6/30. And you'll see here that the expenses are listed first for each governmental activity. And then if there's any charges for services that relate to that activity, that's included in the next column. So the second and third column here are your revenues, whereas this first column here is your expenses. And so the net expense revenue for each of these activities flows through over here to either the governmental activity column or the business type activity column, which you'll see later on. We go to the proprietary funds at the City of Birmingham, and I had to include another page from the CFAR to give you a better example of proprietary funds, but the City of Birmingham only has this one business type activity, the Emergency Management Communication District, which I think is a good sign, that your government is not getting involved in too many things that maybe it shouldn't be. And you've got the component units presented down here, separately than this line for the total primary government. And then you've got the sales and use taxes that can't be assigned to a specific activity, investment earnings, things like that, to give you your net ending to your change in net assets here, and then it compares beginning and ending net assets. It adds that change to beginning net assets to give you your ending net assets for both governmental activities, business type activities, and the total combined. All right, now we move here into the governmental funds, and you can see here, again, we're talking about governmental funds which have a current resources measurement focus and use the modified accrual basis of accounting. So you only have current assets here and current liabilities, and then the difference between the two, that's where your fund balances are. And so here you have these various funds, these governmental funds listed across the top that you guys have seen over the course of the semester. It gives you your cash balance, your total assets, your total liabilities here, and again net assets, and then you get a total for all governmental funds over here to the far right.